Hello to everyone on native lands. This is Danny Brigman, and you are listening to the Living and Building on Our Homelands podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Hello, everyone on native lands. You are listening to episode 3 of Living and Building on Our Homelands. This is Danny here. Thank you for spending your time with me here. So hopefully you've been taking some value, enjoying the episode so far. It's been fun to kind of record and talk to. Still lining up some guests, so this thing will continue to grow and evolve along with your feedback. And if you hear anything in the background, that is my little guy Atlas. We are homesick today. No complaints though. We've been watching the Cocodona live stream all day today, just hanging out. But anyway, get right to it. A couple topics I want to cover today with you all. Number one, kind of just being another peek behind the curtain of what's going on with Homelands, something that I haven't quite shared publicly, something we're working on behind the scenes, and kind of just focused on resiliency. Maybe that's a message from that topic. So resiliency, and then also touching into sacred and traditional sites. Kind of a twofold there. One, kind of what Homelands is going to do within the app regarding to those. And then sharing a site or two from my tribe that I'm aware about and kind of tell you the stories behind it. And I think even with that, as this continues to grow, that may be a reoccurring segment on here of just sharing a little bit of tribal history with you, whether it's a sacred site, tribal story, tribal historical event, something of that nature. All right, let's get into it. So the resiliency topic. So part of the complications of building something like Homelands. So this is an app, and if you are in the millennial generation or probably younger, explaining it to older generations, you could probably understand there is some complications behind building a business centered around an app. Even my parents, kind of discussing it a little with them, they're a little excited, but they don't quite understand it, which I don't blame them. And so that kind of even goes into the business realm of it. Trying to secure funding, whether business loans through traditional sources, whether it's, some donations or maybe even equity stakes. It's really hard to kind of communicate it through to older generations. And it's especially difficult because the way Homelands is structured, and probably many other probably all app development, especially if that's you're kind of like start out for the business. You're not going to generate revenue until that app is out there and live. So you need a ton of capital in order to get it going. And it's hard to acquire that capital unless you already have it, like through your family or, your own personal means. And that is what I've been struggling with. It's hard to obtain capital when this app isn't going to make money in 7 to 9 more months. So really that would be, since we started this development phase, that would be close to a year and a half. So that is kind of a long runway. And so even if I was to secure traditional funding, that's 15 to 18 months worth of payments without revenue coming into the business. So that would just be money out of my pocket. And that's what makes this tough. And so I've had to be really creative to try and seek out these different sources. I've touched on it a little bit, attempted to work on partnerships with local tribes and things like that. And it's okay. Not everything works out. It kind of weeds you out to see who really cares about this and who's going to keep pursuing. And we're still here. We're going to make this happen. I apologize, it's allergy season. But anyway, so what I have done to get creative, I wanted to try and figure out how can I get another revenue stream going for Homelands that complements it. So that not only could that revenue stream, that other business, make money on its own, but also potentially build up Homelands as well. Then maybe Homelands build up that thing. Versus just like something out of left field. Like, cool, put some money in my pocket, but it doesn't bring that extra value. So, just throwing out random examples, if I start doing a food truck, how would that complement this fitness tracking app that's centered around land acknowledgement and raising awareness? Or If I went out with my chainsaw and I started doing thinning units and things like that, okay, how does that feed back into homelands? So what I did some research. Sorry, let me grab my little guy here for a second for you. Hey, buddy. So you're joining me. Sick guy just hanging out with dad all day. No. All right. So what I did, and what would complement homeland? And so I kind of did a little research and kind of looked into it, tried to do some structuring. And what I came upon was, what if I obtained like a run coach certification and started offering something in the running coach realm, where that could be something where it could be an easy way to kind of take down a barrier and start training some people that either, just beginning their fitness journeys, never had a formal run coach before, and get them out on the trails and kind of like be that gateway, not only to help them provide value up front, but that gateway into homelands. And so that's what I did. Hit a little hiccups, just like with everything. Some things fell through, but we won't focus on those. What I'm excited about, and this is kind of the inside look. So I haven't shared this publicly yet. I'm trying to wait for it to be official, but giving you guys the sneak peek here. So what I have been working on for, probably like 4 months now. I have been developing and organizing a run camp here on my reservation for the youth that go to our TANF youth centers, 3-day run camp where they can come, just learn the basics, get out, move their bodies. Nothing too extreme, kind of just like entry level with the little guys, like ages like 6 to 12-ish, break them up into groups and kind of just like introduce them to running. Just show them like, hey, like you can do something with this, and just kind of, it's a contract, but still in a way giving back to the community, showing up for the community, and hopefully like, again, breaking down those barriers and getting these little guys comfortable with running and hopefully trail running, and even showing how running is part of our culture. And we are a people of runners. All Native people were, especially before the introduction of horses, and just getting back to those roots. So that's something I'm really excited about. And that is supposed to be mid-ish June. And so hopefully that contract gets approved. So me and a couple of my coaches that I've selected can provide that to the community. And that would be something I would love to roll out to other neighboring tribes, areas, especially once we kind of get this first one and get that one done and kind of, circle back, take some notes, figure out how we can do it better. And that's just something I'm super, super excited about. I think it'd be really impactful for these youth, and then, even maybe build towards something else. And that thing could be its own business. I would love to go around and show tribal youth running and trail running and getting them comfortable with trail running, and that how much of a healthy outlet it is. Because even a little bit with that, I know a lot, at least up here in the inland Northwest, the reservations here, we're obsessed with basketball. There's not as many runners, but I know running's big in Indian country, and kind of obsessed with softball too. But focusing on basketball, there's nothing wrong with basketball. Love it, enjoy watching it. I played it a little bit. Rode the bench to state, got a front row seat to go see my friends play at state. Kind of what I've seen in my community, and I don't think it's necessarily unique, but I feel like our community, we put these kids on a pedestal during basketball season, and we build them up, and then either once it's not basketball season or if they graduate, we kind of just move on to the next crop of kids, and there's not that support, whether maybe they're never meant to play college ball, or just for whatever reason it didn't work out. So their basketball career, ball. their college careers just for whatever reason didn't work out. And I feel like that, obviously it's not a main contributor, but it also doesn't help these youth out. They all of a sudden, maybe their identity was involved in basketball. Maybe they feel like they've lost an outlet. You can always still go play pickup ball, but it's not the same. And so what I really hope is to really hammer home that running can be a healthy outlet. And running is something you can do, your entire life. assuming your physical health allows you to where like someone like me, I wasn't competitive in high school in track. I didn't do cross country, but look, I can still run now. I run ultra marathons, mid back of the pack runner, and it's an outlet for me. It helps with my mental health. It helps me be a better partner, helps me be a better father, helps me be a better employee, better supervisor. And it's just something I want to share. It's something I want to share with the youth and show like, hey, no matter what, if you're good at basketball or if you're not, if you're done with playing basketball or not, like you still provide value. And so that's something, who knows what this run coaching, run camp thing will evolve into, but it's something I hope I can provide, at least to my community through this run camp, or begin to provide. So that's something I'm really excited about. Really, really hope it pans out. God forbid if something with that contract doesn't work out. I'm sure I'll try and still find something that I can do. I've even flirted with the idea with trying to create some youth, just reservation cross-country team. That's been on my mind. They just had their birthdays. So I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter, and they just started youth sports. I'm thankful that financially and time-wise I can sign them up for sports and take them, but I know it's a demand on parents. It can be expensive. It's really time-consuming. So an idea I've been like kind of just sitting on, like contemplating about, but I haven't pulled the trigger on, is possibly creating our own internal little cross-country team / league, just informal. And what it is, it's youth around that age, you know. I'm assuming I'd probably have to put a cap on the number of kids, you know, if it were to get popular, but either free or extremely minimal. I think dream goal would be to have Homelands up and profitable, so that way I can just make it free. But yeah, so extremely cheap or free, and have practice, you know, in Welpenick, kind of at the center of our reservation where our admin building and everything is, and have practice like twice a week. And after so many practices, we will have cross-country, like a meets. And these meets would just be our kids. I'd set up courses on different parts of the reservation, show these kids like our whole reservation. I mean, our res isn't that big, but at the same time, we get kind of isolated. Kids who grew up on one end of the reservation never get familiar with the other side, and vice versa. So I think it'd be really great. And just like rotate through, and like that way too, less demand on parents. Like, hey, you're not driving an hour, you know, into the city, or hour and a half, 2 hours. Like, you're driving, if you're driving at all, like 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes, like on the reservation. I think Atlas likes the idea. But setting them up and just do a short little run, keep track of time for them where they just compete against themselves, have a good time, have a bunch of snacks and different awards and things. And so like that's something else too. It's not necessarily like core to Homelands, but it's something else I kind of want to do on the side. It's something that I could see could provide value for Homelands. It's like those are some of the kind of other things that just working on in the background of things. And so I think with all that, kind of tying back to what I said at the beginning, just like a message of like resiliency, like keep trying to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And this is something I really think can stick and will stick, and I'm excited about. I just haven't formally announced it yet because that contract's not final, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. Theoretically, there should be any reason it should get denied. It's at the very tip top. It's gotten approved by everybody else, so we'll see. I'm excited, and hopefully I can make like a formal announcement on it. So leads us right into the next topic. I was kind of asked to cover this, and I'm going to cover it in two ways. Just like sacred and traditional sites. And I don't think when this topic was requested, this was kind of the angle they were looking at, but it's kind of maybe a qualifier or something I want to explain, because I think it could be a sensitive topic for some. So with Homelands, Atlas here has a couple things to say about it. With Homelands, there is the premium version. We'll have that Wikipedia style page where we can aggregate travel history and all that information on there, all of our oral stories, everything. And with that, because I've been kind of asked before, just here and there, like, because like, what about sacred and traditional sites? Because some tribes, some people don't want their location shared for fear of vandalism, and that fear is real. A lot of sites have been vandalized with different petroglyphs, and things like that, with, for whatever reason, with spray paint or whatever over the top of it. So it is a big fear, big concern. And like kind of, so here's my thoughts on it. would love to have as much information as possible, or as much information that the local tribes are willing to share, but I do not intend and I do not want exact locations to be shared for fear of that reason. So there won't be any pins dropped on those specific locations. There won't be, when you open up a map in Homelands, it's not going to point out those exact markers or exact areas. If anything, just possibly generalized. But what I would hope and prefer is just telling the story of the site and what it means, and that's what would be shared. And I can kind of possibly go into a couple examples. So just like off the cuff, I don't have a lot of the specifics, but my tribe, the Spokane tribe, our reservation is about an hour northwest of the city of Spokane. The city is named after the tribe, and our traditional lands included the city of Spokane. Kind of went close, if not near, to the Idaho border. Went as far down south possibly as Steptoe. There's a big battle of Steptoe, which that could be a future topic. And went, I'm not sure how far west, but then also went up north-ish to about Colville. And we were nomadic, but a lot of our culturally significant sites or camps, seasonal camps, were along the river. Many of our traditional sites are found along the Spokane River because we were river people. The river gave us sustenance through salmon, lamprey, sturgeon, and yeah, that's where we lived. And so there are different locations along the Spokane River today where there are petroglyphs. Again, not going to share where exactly. If you're curious, I don't know, maybe that's something I can show some locals here or there. Obviously, through communicating, not just going to show just anybody. But these sites were important. And through Cooley Dam, when it flooded, the Spokane River created Lake Roosevelt. We lost a lot of our sites. Actually, each year, each spring when the river's down because of the dam, we have our preservation department. They go kind of comb the beaches because pretty much every year remains are found, because that's where we made our lives. That's where we would bury our people, were along the river. And so once the river's at full capacity now, those sites are underwater. And with the varying river levels, they get washed away, they get exposed. And so our preservation department goes down there, finds the remains, and collects them and reburies them before they can get damaged or stolen or anything like that. So yeah, it's really important to the tribe. And so that's why even if you do go along the Spokane River that borders Spokane Reservation, if you go to any of the beaches, it'll say no motorized vehicles on the beaches, because that's why. Because you could be driving across remains, you could be damaging them, disrespecting them, and because those areas are sacred to us. There's even Atlas here has a lot to say on it. There you go, bud. Even one of the campgrounds, Pierre Point, locals here, we nickname it Burial Grounds because there was a traditional site there where there were burial grounds. And so, I mean, that's just kind of something, not super specific, but that's just a little bit about my tribe. I mean, there's other things. I think I can still remember a couple. You could still, I'm sure it's not just unique to my tribe, but typically closer to the river, if you go around and look at old growth pine trees, you can go around the side and you can find where it looks like there's axe marks in the bark, and there's a chunk missing, usually about chest-ish high, maybe waist high. And that's somewhere where a couple hundred years ago, Spokane tribe members went and took off the bark, and they were taking away some of that like meaty pulp of the tree for sustenance. And so you can still kind of find that. You just got to know what you're looking for, and it's out there. And then one other thing that I thought was really cool that I learned from working with our preservation department, if you go look at talus slopes, and those are, if you think about it, if you're in or near the mountains, those just rocky slopes where it's just nothing but loose rock. If you go to one of those hillsides and you see, instead of just like the straight slope, there's almost a little bit of like a small little bench, almost maybe looks like a small bowl on that slope, there's, please do not disturb, but there's artifacts there. Because if you think about it, like I said, we were nomadic people, and so we had our own tools, like mortars and pestles, different bowls, maybe hammer-like objects, things like that, that cumulatively are really heavy. And when you're traveling such great distances, like, it doesn't make sense to carry all these heavy items. So what we would do is we would have those items, we'd go to those talus slopes and bury those items in the rocks. And then we would travel to our winter camp. And our winter camp, we would have the same tools, buried the same way at the winter camp. And then we would just grab those tools where we buried them on that talus slope, use them, and then same thing. So each one of our usual camping sites, we would have something like that. And that was common for a lot of these nomadic tribes because it would just be easier to mark, easier to get to. You know, they were safe under the rocks. You couldn't just lose them in the dirt, wouldn't decay. And so it was just kind of an ingenious way to live at the time and just made the most sense. So those are just a couple things, kind of not specific sites. I don't think I'd want to share a specific site unless it was just a story, but if there's a specific site with like something that could be damaged, unless it was obviously like this one mountain has meaning, like obviously I would love to share those stories, kind of accumulate those stories. But when it comes to specific sites, I think that's kind of more or less how I would like to share it with you all, and kind of respect the tribes and respect what they do want to share or don't want to share, because everyone's going to be different. Every tribe is different, every tribe member is different, and do my best to kind of respect all of their desires. And so it's definitely going to be kind of a balancing act, and I think that's going to be something when Homelands is up, when it comes to aggregating the tribal history, going to be really sensitive about, and reaching out to tribes, verifying or making sure they're comfortable with different things being shared or not being shared, or maybe even having a place to have it stored, but potentially having it private, behind a couple layers, so that way the tribe can still have it compiled someplace for them to access, but maybe not for the public. Maybe something like that can be incorporated within Homelands, because I do think we as Native people need to get a record of a lot of these things before they're lost forever. Because I know with my tribe, we have lost a lot. Again, no disrespect, but I do know my tribe, we have been assimilated a bit, especially compared to other tribes. And I know we've, like many others, have lost a lot of different traditions. And, it's just sad because when those are gone, they're gone. This isn't maybe like a culturally significant story, but I just can't help but think. My grandma Elvina, my dad's mother, before she passed, I worked with this program with my tribe, and we were able to go around and interview elders. And the point was kind of to interview elders that weren't as vocal, so that way they can be heard also. Because I'm sure you guys all know some elders, whether you're native or non-native. There's some that are very vocal, and that's fine. And there's some that are more quiet and don't kind of seek out that public attention or that spotlight. And that's okay too. So with that assignment from working with the tribe, I was granted the ability to interview my grandmother, my grandma Elvina. And she passed a few years ago during COVID, not related to COVID. And I just cherished those moments I have and have that on record. She was able to share some stories with me that I never knew, talking about where I live right now on the reservation, in West End, we call it. She grew up around here, and talking about before there were roads here and riding horses. She remembered riding her horse up to the Spokane River and watching it rise when Cooley Dam was put in, and sitting on the banks and watching it go up and up and up. And then I heard a story that my grandpa and his friends were riding their horses, and there was an old Detillion bridge that crossed the Spokane River, and they would oftentimes go across that bridge to the non-reservation side and steal watermelons. But this one time they claimed to be the last ones to ever cross that bridge, because the whole area was closed down because the river was rising, and then they ran across it one last time before the river rose. And even something like that, where maybe it's not the most traditional story, it's not sharing some sort of cultural value or some deep old historical moment for the tribe or something like that, I think stories like that still provide some value and even show you that we're not that far removed from it. as much as we think at times, or maybe society wants us to think, that's a lot of the stuff that has happened to us, that has happened to Native people, is just a couple generations ago. And I really hope with Homelands we can preserve those stories, preserve some of that history, and through the physical connection with the land, I hope it can also reinvigorate the spiritual connection and the emotional connection with the land and its original inhabitants of, we've Native people, we've been here the whole time. We've been here since time immemorial. And you might be hiking that mountain with all of your fancy gear, struggling, like watching the Cocodona 250. I have it up on the TV. And I can't imagine. I hope I can do that one day. But imagine that. They're traveling 250 miles on foot over, 5.5 days. And these are treks Native people would make back then without the hydration vests, without the high-carb energy drink mix, without aid stations, without support crews and shoe changes, emergency bivvies and all of that. They would just be out there. That was their everyday life. And I think that's something we have to remind ourselves, that nothing bothers me more when... And I think it's just ignorance. It's not willful ignorance, but when all that stuff's called primitive, it's not primitive. I do not think many of us today can survive like that without the modern amenities. Like, that is and was strength. And through all of this, I just hope Homelands can be that platform that can provide that. Homelands isn't going to be something where, I don't see it overtaking Strava and Strava crowns and segments and the AI coaching telling you that every run's a good job and all of that. That, it doesn't fit our values. That's not our niche. Strava already does a good job at that. We can't beat them at that. What Homelands can be is be that platform that can provide those connections through fitness. And that's what I really hope to accomplish. And that's kind of why I'm just so passionate about this. Regardless of how quickly funding comes or does not come, I'm going to still be working at this thing. Working on it for people like Little Atlas here, so that there's something to show for, there's something I can share with them of our different stories and everything, because I'm still learning about a lot of my roots of my tribe and our stories and different significance there. And I want this for them also, for them to look back on and have that ready and be better equipped than I was, have that information more accessible than it was for me, because I think we get too isolated nowadays, especially in Indian country, where different families or different people kind of, for better or for worse, hang on to those stories, and they're just family stories. And there's other people out there that, other tribal members of the same tribe, that want to learn, but they don't have that outlet. And give you an example, and I'm not saying this as disrespect to anyone in my family. I love all of my family and everything, but very kind of slowly, not purposely maybe, I want to get my girls into jingle dress dancing. It's hard though. I got them the regalia, but we just don't have anyone in our family that dances traditionally. And it's really hard to build back those connections. Oftentimes, I'm not speaking this for all families, but oftentimes some families will get protective and they'll say your family should be teaching you these things, and kind of push away. And it's not everyone has that luxury. For better or for worse, it's no one's fault. And it's things like that that are really hard. And I just, obviously Homelands isn't going to be teaching anyone how to jingle dance or anything like that. But I hope Homelands can be this inviting place to people, native and non-native alike, where we can learn about each other and learn about ourselves at the end of the day, and just build those connections, build that respect. Hopefully that can help with the self-esteem of our youth, and hopefully through that connection, maybe that's the first step to kind of maybe fixing or alleviating so many issues that plague Indian country. Again, this isn't going to fix everything. I'm not going to pretend it is, but I just hope it can open a dialogue and just be this place we can come together, be respectful, and then through the coaching and the run camps, wherever that is, can provide that healthy outlet to people and to our youth, and kind of break down some barriers and show that we all have value. And Man, getting almost a little emotional here, and I wasn't planning on it. But that's why I work so hard on Homelands. That's why I keep plugging away at it. I keep trying these different things and just keep building on it. And that's why it's ultimately going to succeed. A success might not be 100,000 users in 1 year, or might not be X amount of dollars in revenue. Success is going to be having the app be live and having people take value from the app and put value back into it. That's how I measure success for it. And that's what I'm excited about, and that's why I keep working so hard at this every single day. Whether it's showcased on social media or not, plugging away at this, I really hope to provide value for you guys in every form that I can. And so with that, things are kind of winding down here. And again, be able to say as each episode, because I'm sure people will stumble upon this, more and more so later down the line. And, I know for me, I don't necessarily start a new podcast with episode 1, but email, DMs, everything's always open. So always for some feedback, some comments, maybe topics of what you would like to have covered, kind of like what you'd like to see. I welcome and appreciate all of that. So please, please, please like, share, subscribe. Definitely, if you don't follow Homelands on Instagram, please do. On Substack, do some different long form written content there also. Just trying to get as much content and as much value out to you guys as I can. And definitely my goal to share as much as I can with hiding minimal things behind a paywall. Currently, there's no paywall on anything. This is early on, just trying to get value for you guys. So there's no sense in putting it behind a paywall for now. But yeah, I appreciate every single one of you who listen and follow. Poor Atlas here, who's the sick guy today, has crashed out on me. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Hope to keep churning out episodes for you. Have a couple guests lined up, so that'll be interesting too. And hopefully it'll provide more value. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Cocodona's still going, so I'm going to tune right back into that. And yeah, thank you all. Have a good one.